Hi. Today I am going to explain a science fiction movie, Hulk. Because of his lunatic scientist father and his strange experiments, the genetic changes take place inside his body and he becomes Hulk. As the movie starts, we see a genetic scientist named David Banner. He is working on the DNA of starfish, jellyfish, monkeys and lizards, and he comes to know about some strange things. He discovers that cells can be regenerated and the body can be strengthened. He believes that if his work is successful, it can be used on humans and he cannot be killed by any weapon, disease or even poison. The government has banned his project because he wants to apply it on humans, but he keeps on working on his project quietly. He does every experiment on his body due to which his DNA changes. When his wife gives birth to a son named Bruce, Bruce's body also has a modified DNA. He takes his son's blood sample, and realizes his mistake. He starts finding the cure to eliminate it from his body. Bruce is not like other children. Whenever he gets hurt he doesn't cry, because he doesn't feel pain. Now David is doing research on his project, and an army officer comes and says due to the violation of government rules, you are fired from this project. David gets angry upon this and he activates the gamma rays in the lab. David comes to his house and starts fighting with his wife. He wants to kill Bruce because he thought that he would prove dangerous for humanity. Bruce is too young and doesn't understand what is happening. After this, we are shown that Bruce has grown up. Bruce's name is now Bruce Krensler. He was informed that his parents are dead and he was adopted by a lady, and she is his mom. Now Bruce is also a scientist and works with a girl named Betty Ross. They love each other and are working on a project together. They are doing experiments on a frog and trying to discover the cure of cancer. An army officer named Glenn comes to know about their project and he comes to meet them. He meets Betty and asks her to work in his lab because all the army labs were under his control. But Betty refuses and asks him to leave. In the evening when Betty is leaving the lab, she sees a new cleaning worker. Betty asks him where the man who used to clean here was earlier. He replies that he is dead, and now I'll work here. Glenn again visits them and asks Bruce to work in his lab, but he refuses to work for the army. In fact, Bruce wants that whatever experiment he does, it should be for the welfare of humanity. But Glenn doesn't want that and he threatens him and leaves from there. After this, when the lab is completely empty, the new cleaner goes to the lab where Bruce works. There he gets Bruce's hair and he keeps that hair with him. He goes home and starts doing some research. In fact, this is Bruce's father David Banner. Bruce does not know that he is alive and does not recognize him. He picked up Bruce's hair because he needed his DNA for experiment, and now he has got his DNA. On the other hand, while they are working in the lab, the gamma rays get out of control and before those rays fall on Bruce's colleague, he stands in front of him, and all the gamma rays fall on him. After this, we see Bruce in a hospital. Betty comes to him and she is shocked and says, you didn't have to be alive, because she knows how dangerous these rays are. Bruce says that these gamma rays have fallen in love with me. David comes to Bruce at night and tells him that, you will be shocked by what is happening to you, and I have the answer to all your questions. He tells Bruce that I am your father and Bruce replies that my parents are dead. David tells him that you are lied to, and the truth was hidden to you. He tells him that he was sent to jail for 30 years, and he is released now. He tells him that the question you've been trying to find for many years is actually within you, and now you will understand it. He also warns him to stay away from Betty Ross because she is the daughter of the army officer who stopped his research and sent him to jail. He doesn't believe and asks him to leave. Before leaving, David says, I have to keep an eye on your anger. In the next scene, Betty goes to meet her dad, who is an officer in the army. She tells her dad that Glenn has threatened Bruce and you will have to help me in this matter. Her dad tells her that Glenn is skeptical about Bruce and asks her to keep away from Bruce. Betty feels hurt and says, I hoped that you would help me, but you broke my trust. Saying that, she leaves from there. After this, when Bruce is working in the lab, David's words echo in his mind, and the faint memories of his childhood add to his anger. Due to these memories, chemical changes take place in his body and he starts changing slowly. After a while he becomes a Hulk. David Banner is also watching him silently, and when he becomes a complete Hulk, he comes in front of him and touches his cheek. But some faint memories of his childhood make him angry and he breaks the roof of the lab and leaves from there. In the morning, Betty comes to meet him at his house and asks him, where were you last night? She tells him that yesterday someone destroyed our lab. Bruce doesn't remember anything, that he became Hulk last night. He tells Betty that he had a strange dream yesterday, and he felt like he was being born again, and it was very painful for him. He says that the new cleaner claims that he is my father, and he was not dead. He says he told me that he had given me some unique powers through his experiments. During their conversation, Betty's father comes there and asks his guards to take my daughter out, and when she is in her car, her dad comes to her and tells her that, I think your friend is working on a huge project, which is not allowed by the government. In fact, General knows that Bruce is David Banner's son. But he doesn't tell this to his daughter. He tells his daughter that whatever he is doing, we will find it. We will keep it under house arrest for a few days, and you must stay away from it. He suspects that whatever happened last night, it was all done by Bruce, so he takes him in his custody. Betty goes to meet Bruce's dad David Banner and says to him that, "Bruce told me that you were in the lab last night, and I want to know what happened there." David says to her that actually, you want to know what happened to Bruce so that you can change him. Betty tells him that my father is a general in the army and he doubts that Bruce is doing such a work, which can be dangerous for security of the country. David says you handed him over to your father, which is more dangerous for him. My son is unique and this world never accepts him. While talking, Betty takes off the stall and puts it on the sofa. David sits beside her and keeps her stall and says it is too late. Now I can neither help him nor you. David says that anyway he doesn't consider me his father and you can leave now, and she has to leave. After this we are shown that the general is investigating Bruce. He asks Bruce about his father David Banner. He says I don't know anything. General doesn't believe him and says, you know who I am. I am the one who sent your father David to jail and I can also do this to you. Bruce says I don't know anything about this, and I was always told that my father had died. General says you are lying. He says when you were 4 years old, that incident happened in front of your eyes. How can you forget such an incident? Bruce says, which incident? I do not know anything about it. General tells him that his lab is sealed and he cannot even go to any lab, where he can do a single experiment. And stay away from my daughter otherwise it will not be better for you. Bruce is in prison now and a phone rings. This phone is of his father David. He asks his father, what did you do with me? David says that you can never understand it because I also did not understand it well till today. Bruce says you experimented on yourself and you gave it to me through inheritance. David says it's unique and now it's time to use it. Bruce says that I will never let it happen. I will go away from here and I will treat myself and will remove it from my body. David says, I know you and Betty will become happy by doing so, but do you really want to separate a part of your body? He says, I've sent my dogs to kill Betty. I did some experiments with your DNA and the results are amazing. My dogs are very strong now. Bruce says you used my DNA on animals. Bruce says you're crazy and I won't let this happen and he hangs up. When he tries to get out of there, Glenn comes and stops him. They begin to fight each other and Glenn hits his face. This makes Bruce angry, and he starts changing slowly and becomes a Hulk. He beats Glenn and moves towards Betty's house. Betty feels someone is outside the house and when she comes out of the house, she finds Bruce behind the trees. Bruce comes out and picks her up, and puts her on the roof of her car. Then, those dreadful dogs reach there and Bruce makes Betty sit inside the car and starts fighting with the dogs. These dogs are very powerful and dangerous, and there is a heavy fight between the dogs and Bruce. At last, Bruce kills them all. When he becomes a normal person, he comes to Betty and Betty asks him if he remembers anything. Bruce explains that the gamma rays mixed with my body and brought about these changes in my body. I feel a sense of power, anger and freedom. And it's all because of my father. He changes me completely and wants to make me a monster. The next morning Betty calls her father and asks his father to help her because she is scared and she wants to help Bruce. His dad sends his army there and they inject Bruce with a gun. The army takes him away from the city and imprisons him. Betty asks her dad, how long will you keep Bruce unconscious? His dad says that if need be, he will have to spend the rest of his life like this. Betty says that she is human not animal. Why do you think he is a threat? His dad says that I know his father. He was also mad like him and Bruce is also doing research on the same project on which his father was doing. Betty says I know that the government wants to use Bruce, otherwise you don't keep him alive yet. Let me to meet him, I can help him. She spends time with him and they go to the place where they spent their childhood. After seeing his old house, Bruce becomes scared and they come back. Now David is shown who is trying to complete the research that Betty and Bruce were doing together. He uses gamma rays on his body and a different kind of power comes inside him. When he touches the metal, he starts absorbing that metal like a chameleon and he can also use the energy of that metal. Suddenly, a guard comes there and asks him what are you doing here? He asks him to raise her hand but David says you can't guess my power. He kills him and leaves from there. After this, when Betty goes to meet Bruce, her dad tells her that you will never be able to meet Bruce after today because Bruce is going to be taken by the National Security Agency. He tells her that Glenn cheated on him. His dad claims that Glenn wants to make a deal with Bruce along with some of the top army officers, so that he can earn a lot of money from it. He tells his daughter that he can't let her meet him for the last time because he has orders from above and now you should go home. and she goes home from there. David goes to Betty and says, I want to meet my son Bruce, because your father is in charge of this whole project. Betty says that he can't do anything because the National Security Agency is about to take over Bruce. Betty says that you are responsible for whatever is happening with Bruce today. David tells her that I loved my wife very much. She wanted a baby then. He was experimenting on himself at that time, and when we had a child, he got all those qualities which should not have come to him. Actually, I had given my wife a monster instead of a son. I was looking for its cure, but before I completed my work, your father stopped that research. I had no other way and I wanted to kill Bruce, and I took the knife, and when I was going to kill him, my wife came in and by mistake the knife hit her and she died. It was a very tragic incident for me, and this is what happened. On the other side, Glenn goes to meet Bruce and starts torturing him so that he can become a Hulk again, and he can take a piece of meat from his body to do research on it. Bruce doesn't become the Hulk, but he becomes unconscious due to Glenn's electric shocks. They put him in a tub of water so that in anger he will become Hulk. Bruce dreams and sees in it that his father thought him as a monster and wants to kill him, and his mother is protecting him. This angers Bruce and he becomes the Hulk. He breaks that tub and comes out. When he comes out, they try to make Bruce unconscious with chemical gases, but these have no effect on him. They caught him by using adhesive material, and Glenn tries to take a sample from his body, but Bruce becomes angry and throws him away. Glenn fires on him, due to which a blast occurs and he dies, but it has no effect on Hulk and he starts destroying everything. Then he comes out and starts running. Hulk jumps high and leaves, but the army keeps on chasing him. He reaches a deserted place and the army attacks him. He becomes angry and starts destroying their tanks. After this, he makes a huge jump and now he is moving towards the city. Army keeps on chasing him, and when he is on a rock they fire on him and he is pressed under stones. They think that he has died and leave from there, but Hulk is not dead yet and keeps on moving. Now Hulk is on top of a bridge and a jet plane comes towards him. The pilot loses his balance and it is about to crash with the bridge, but Hulk jumps on him, which makes him fall down and avoids his accident. Hulk is still over it and the pilot takes the Hulk to the height of the sky. At one point in the sky, the Hulk faints and leaves his hands. He falls into the water and the army attacks on him, but he escapes and moves towards the middle of the city and begins to destroy everything in anger. Betty asks her dad that she wants to meet Hulk, and when Betty comes in front of Hulk he starts becoming normal and becomes Bruce. The army takes him into his custody. Betty's father orders that if he does any work other than sitting on a chair, then kill him by giving him an electric shock. Now the army brings Bruce's dad David. He has been arrested and now he wants to meet his son for the last time. When David comes, Bruce says, I should have killed you, and David replies, I should have killed you too. Bruce becomes emotional by remembering his mother. David consoles him, but Bruce becomes angry. David says to him, I need your power. In fact, David has such power that he can draw anyone's power, and now he wants to draw the power of the Hulk. David tries to anger Bruce, but he does not get angry, due to which David starts peeling the wire lying there from his mouth, due to which he gets electrocuted, and he absorbs the power of the current. The lights of the whole city go out and now Bruce also becomes Hulk and they start fighting. When they reach a lake, David says to Hulk that I want your power, and David starts absorbing his power. Hulk says take my power, but David realizes that he can't handle it. He says I don't want your power, take it back. And then the army releases an atomic bomb and they die. After 1 year, Betty gets a call from her dad and he says, you and I know that Bruce can't survive from the atomic bomb, but people say that they've seen Bruce. If he comes to meet you, you will tell me. She says no, it will never happen. I don't even want him to visit me because the more I remember him, the more my love grows for him, and she hangs up. Then it is shown that Bruce is still alive and he treats the tribals. When he is treating some people, some men come there and they start snatching medicine from them. Bruce says that you are making me angry, but he controls his anger. It seems that he has learned to control his anger, because if he gets angry, he will become Hulk, and the world will know that the Hulk is still alive. And with this the story ends here. Bundles of thanks for watching.